And today we're going to have our first keynote speaker. As you know, corporate partnerships at Plug and Play are very important, and Microsoft is definitely one of our primary partners. And so it's with great honor that I introduce Daniel Lewin from Microsoft. He's a corporate vice president of emerging technologies at Microsoft. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kayvon. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. This is an extraordinary gathering, in my understanding. Very bright lights. My understanding is that most of you made up your minds to come here within the last 6 weeks or so in terms of the organizing. So this is indicative of the reality, which is that regardless of the economic times that we live in, entrepreneurs will not be dissuaded, and financiers will continue to suspend disbelief and bet on them, which is a good thing. So let me give you a little bit about my background and give you some context on why I hope my remarks today are relevant and useful to you. Having grown up in terms of my business and professional life in Silicon Valley now for 32 years, I've spent the last 7.5 at Microsoft, where I've built an internal system and team and process, which is now an integral part of how the company operates. And it's a way for us to be looking at the strategic implications of emerging businesses. I do a few other things as well, but for the purposes of this conversation, it really is kind of the cornerstone of what I do. I live, work, and play here in Silicon Valley, and have for those 32 years that I've been doing these things here in the Valley, and have various experiences in different kinds of startup companies. I worked at Apple a long time ago when we were building the Mac. I've worked with venture capitalists. I've done consulting work for large corporations, working with little companies. I've been in little companies doing deals with IBM and those kinds of things. So my experience base really comes from having been where many of you are as entrepreneurs. So maybe I can get a quick show of hands. How many people are here to start a company? So more than half. And so I assume the rest are primarily part of the infrastructure, either financing or incubators from around the world. So that's good. So the challenge for a company of our size and scale, and that is Microsoft, is how to take a very, very broad vision with a very, very large set of numbers, both people and business or P&L. And how do you pay attention to what's going on in and around you in such a way that you can fundamentally answer a question for an emerging company, an entrepreneur or venture capitalist? Can a company like Microsoft be helpful? And if the answer is yes, how? And if the answer is no, provide some context on why. And that why typically shares a fair amount of perspective on the way we think about things and see things, which can be competitive advantage. Because of those of you who go back to the days at Xerox PARC, Alan Kay, who was one of the famous folks who did a lot of the interesting things that we live and breathe today with our desktop computers and our laptops, and this whole notion of mobile computing was really in his mind's eye some 30 years ago. His point was perspective can be worth, as he said, I think 90 IQ points. So perspective is valuable because where you sit, how you see things gives you context, and that's how you enter markets, that's how you make businesses work. So Microsoft has this really broad vision, as you might imagine, because we're in so many different areas of the business. But there's some core tenets in and around this broad vision that make it, I think, accessible to an early stage business and an entrepreneur or a venture capitalist who's trying to figure out where a bet might work and how that company might work or not work with Microsoft. And again, you can choose to ignore what we do, and that's fine, but for those that find an engagement with a company like ours to be useful, this is part of it. So this is a broad vision statement in and around the company's mission, and it's really to support this notion of creating seamless experiences that combine software with the power of the internet across all kinds of devices. And so it's not as simple as where the company came from with its original mission statement about a computer and a desk, or a computer and a person. And it was a client-server architecture that manifested that first phase of the company's history. And that was a pretty straightforward thing because you had clients and servers, kind of a binary thing. You had desktops, of which Microsoft had a reasonable share of the desktops. And this is before my participation in the company. But that model was pretty straightforward in terms of how you engage with the developer community and the startup community. If you want to do things on the client, Microsoft had a reasonable position, some pretty good tools, or there were third-party tools that could help you engage, and typically you'd get some sort of channel development or lift or partnership that would come forward. In this world of distributed computing, with the internet as a backbone, with open standards as fundamental to the way things work, interoperability at the core of everything that we do and that the industry demands and customers expect. So you've got these fundamental new domains where building distributed systems across this backbone of the internet, which is an open network, so security becomes fundamental. Interoperability, the data, XML is the key descriptor, becomes central to how you'd go about thinking about your business. So with a company as big as ours, with as broad a view as what we have, how do you distill that? And so when you raise your hand and say, could Microsoft be helpful, where do you go and how do you make that happen? So the team that I put together, I just clicked but I saw no action. There you go. The team that I put together was supported by the CEO. I came to the company as a result of serendipity. I was playing around on the web, looking up XML and GPRS networks, bumped into a speech that Steve Ballmer gave about XML and a commitment at the .NET framework level to the tools. Sent him an email, and some small number of days thereafter, I was invited to join the company and do what I'm going to describe right now. And so what we've built up is a group, and they're organized around this notion of a portfolio manager. And if you're familiar with the venture world, and it sounds like just about everybody here is, think of them as a general partner in a firm. And think of each of them as having a set of domain expertises that are tied to where you spend your time. So where are the patterns of entrepreneurial activity? Where are the money flows going? So think of that as, I'll use surfing because we're here in California, although this isn't, mostly people surf down south. But which way is the wind blowing? Where are the waves? And you could think about a company like ours as very much more like the shore, because we have different areas that are very soft landings where you can participate and work with us well, other areas where we're doing things that may be rocky, if you will, depending upon where your focus is as a company. And so sometimes it's glaringly obvious that you can work with us or not, but what we'll do from this portfolio manager approach is to help provide a guiding framework by domain in your language. So if you're thinking about building a company in and around mobility, you won't have to wade through our infrastructure to understand what the exchange business unit thinks about mobility, or the people who are licensing an operating system for a mobile or an embedded device, what they think about, or what the mobile advertising team might think about. So my team will help distill a perspective based upon what they call a portfolio that will help translate for you the right landing zone, if there is one, and then how we can be helpful within that context. So this team changes over time and then ties itself to the patterns of activity on a global basis. And I will point out, and I'll close with this at the end, kind of where we're positioned around the world. But this is a corporate team that takes responsibility for the corporate position on these issues. And we have attendant people in the field, in the local markets, who are part of this extended team. So that's kind of how we're set up. The reason why I put it in this broader structure is to show that there are other touch points that we work with. Those in blue are the areas that are our highest level P&Ls. Those are our business units. And they are the places where we manage our overall corporate P&L. They are made up of product groups, just again to help understand Microsoft's internal stuff. And those product groups are I call them the atomic units. They're the units that make up these bigger P&Ls. They each have a set of initiatives and a set of priorities, say their top 3 or 5, which we have a complete collection thereof. And so we know where their attention is going from a development perspective. In other words, where's their money flowing? What are they spending on their headcount? What are they going to go build? What do they want to go buy? And how are they going to go market what it is that they have to offer, which they then partner with, we say on the left side up there, the COO, which is the field operations and the different channel and segments. So again, our team sits independent of those things and across all those functions. So it really is at a relatively high level in the company, and that's why I point this out, something that we believe is systemic to our ongoing success and our ability to engage and work in an open, interoperable way in a world of open innovation. That's sort of fundamental to the approach.